Hey everybody, be sure to support our show by checking out our sponsor. Jeff's got a new fun show talking Shakespeare, writing, and a whole lot more called Foolish Wits. He's got the bi-weekly Shattered Worlds Twitch stream, and of course, the War for the Tower. Learn more at awesomepod.squarespace.com, and of course you can check the show notes for links to everything.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo, etc. Covering A Clash of Kings, chapters 50 and 51, Theon and Jon. In these chapters, Theon loses control of the people that are supposed to be under his control. What the fuck else is new? And Jon meets a mysterious stranger. Welcome to Some Spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
I am really, excited because we're at this point at almost 3/4 of the way through this book. So we're going to start, things are going to start ramping up pretty shortly.
Okay.
This is like the beginning of the ramp up of
All
several
right.
different plots going at once here. What did you think of these chapters? Give me your impressions.
Theon continues to just be the worst. This is, the Jon chapter was a lot of climbing in that weird way that Martin can write sometimes, where I just get dizzy and disoriented reading the way it happened with Catelyn when she was going to the Eyrie, and it was very similar, and I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
And it was really a lot of to do about nothing until the very, very, very end.
That's
and
true.
Then you're like, oh, okay, something important does happen here, but it doesn't happen until the last page of the chapter. So I was low-key kind of annoyed.
I can understand that. I mean, look, that's going to happen. So just in a way, just be ready for that at times.
So yeah, I had to constantly remind myself exactly what series I'm reading.
Yeah, this is not Jim Butcher where there's
Right.
a new fucking plot point being resolved or started every chapter.
So yeah, I need to make sure I adjust my expectations as I go from book to book.
The journey is the destination. Since there is no destination, I guess that makes sense. That's what we have to say.
But yeah, the Theon chapter, this is definitely okay, now some stuff is about to happen here, because he has just lost not only face and control, but literally lost some people. Mm-hmm. So that chapter is not, fun isn't the right word, but I liked the outward performance of Theon versus the inner oh fuck. And it'd be cool that she found them, but that'd look really bad for Theon, because how embarrassed would he be?
So embarrassed. Yeah. Meanwhile, she's got the kids and she has them hidden, and she's letting him talk about, no, yeah, everything's totally under control. I'll bring you to see the boys in a bit, but they're sleeping. And meanwhile, she knows exactly where the fuck they are,
right
in the back of her
Can
truck.
you imagine? Oh my god. I would love that for her. I would love that for him too, actually. I know at some point we're going to get so much Theon humiliation that it's going to make all of my wishes for his humiliation feel like I was asking for too much. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know that's coming. And yet I still find myself wishing for his humiliation because he just brings that out of me.
Yep. Yeah, I really feel like George R. R. Martin got some, like, sick thrill out of being like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make you guys hate him so much, and then... You're going to hate yourself for how much you hated him. Yeah, that's really actually cruel. It is. Right, and so... So he's sleeping with this girl, Kira, who is just some, like, tavern wench, I guess.
He's all excited because he got to fuck her in Ned Stark's bed. And what does he call it? It was extra spicy or some terrible thing he says.
It added a certain spice.
Like extra spicy fried chicken. That's not what he meant. But that's where my head goes.
It's just, he's so, we find out later that he even slept with the miller's wife.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I cannot get over how many places his dick has been.
Anywhere he could fit it in. He stuck it into, like, I was going to say to any hole, and that sounds gross, but I don't mean like the women. I mean literally any hole that was around. He probably just stuck his dick in it just to see how it would feel.
Like, did Rob know about how incredibly slimy Theon was? Was he aware and just found it funny and charming? Or was he, like, disapproving or what? Because they were close.
You don't think that Rob was partaking in the wenches?
I just don't. Like, he doesn't have the energy of somebody who's out here, like, basically acting like a frat boy.
You know, it's a good question because, like you said, they were close, and we know that.
Where'd you go?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. We know that Theon even says that in this chapter, I think the only person who ever treated him like a brother was Rob, which makes me think that if Rob was disapproving of Theon's shenanigans, he handled it in a way that didn't make Theon feel bad about himself because Theon doesn't seem to be bearing or holding any kind of resentment or grudges.
Yeah.
So if Rob wasn't participating, he was at least behaving in a way that didn't make Theon feel bad about how he was behaving. Like, Rob probably didn't shame him about it. Mm-hmm. Which makes me kind of low-key look sideways at Rob, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And is also why I think, or makes me wonder whether or not Rob was also acting this way. I think it would be different because Rob, you know, is highborn and the Lord's son and the eldest and, you know, probably couldn't, I mean, he could get away with whatever the fuck he wanted to, quite frankly, you know.
True.
And in this world that we're inhabiting, this universe, men who behave this way, especially highborn men, you know, no one is going to hold them to account. You know, it's expected and it's probably laughed about and patted on the back. So.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, I get what you mean when you say Rob doesn't bring that particular type of energy, but do we get Rob POVs?
We don't. No.
So
yeah, it's hard to know. We just see him interacting with his mother pretty much.
Yeah, and that's not going to be...
he's going to be on his best behavior.
Exactly. It's not going to be that side of him, the side that Theon would have seen. You know, we're definitely not going to see with Rob and Kat. Or any of the other times. You're not really going to see that with Rob and Ned, even though we didn't get a lot of that. It was, you know, very little in the first book. Because his father wasn't that type of person. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that Theon was one of the few people that Rob got a chance to be this type of guy with.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, if anybody has theories out there, please chime in. Unless there's anything that is spoilery, obviously.
Yeah.
And yeah, I keep thinking too about like what motivates Theon to behave like this, because of course there's just like horniness, which one can never discount the power of horny.
Yeah. Some people are just lecherous, you know?
You know, yeah. But also I feel like Theon is put in this kind of position where he doesn't have any real standing, even though he should. And maybe this, like, helped make him feel like more of a man, and like he was able to sort of like put his mark on things, so to speak, and be known for something that is like, I don't know, just like a mark of manhood, like you were saying before about how nobody's really going to hold it against you, or it would even be laughed about. Just, I don't know, just sort of trying to get attention in a weird way.
I think that really might be at the heart of it. I mean, there's the natural sort of, you know, wanting to just sleep with everything you can when you're like a 15 or 16-year-old boy, you know, coupled with a desire to have something that is yours, that's separate from the Starks, that, you know, differentiates you from the rest of the family in a way that you get say-so over, you know?
Right, yeah.
And for lack of a better option, this became his thing. And I mean, for all we know, like when we talk about what Rob did and like maybe what he thought of Theon's behavior or anything, it may have been impressive to Rob. You know, Theon could be doing this thing like, you know, when the fuck was it? Somewhere earlier in the books where there's just like, you have oh, you know what? I'm confusing two different properties. Never mind, y'all. But
what was the other thing?
I'm not going to say because it's so ridiculous that I confused the two. But
oh my god, I want to know.
But it was Ted Lasso. Oh my god. But my point is, there's a thing in that show, but it happens in lots of shows where someone who has power or social capital or money or, you know, whatever within a group, the less powerful people in the group will do things to like make them laugh or do things to impress them, you know, do things to be noticed, you know. And if Theon sees that Rob gets a kick out of how many girls he can fuck, then that becomes like the thing that Theon does, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, so yeah, this girl is asleep in his bed, and he is kind of sitting there like, why? Things still don't feel right. And then all of a sudden he realizes, wait a second, okay, the wolves are quiet. That's what the fuck the problem is.
Yeah.
And he has Wex get up and check whether or not they're still in their beds.
Wex is sleeping on the floor at the foot of the bed?
This is a thing, and I don't know that it's a thing like everywhere in this universe, but this was a thing to have like servants sleep at the foot of the bed. It was a combo so that they are right there if you need them, but also they're like guarding in a way. You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, was Wex in there when they were fucking? I have to assume that he just calls him in after.
I would hope, but I don't know. We find out later that Wex, I guess, is mute.
Yeah.
So that raises some questions when it comes to like guarding him, but I guess it's fine. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, and he has the guard outside his door, Erzin, check and about the wolves as well. And Erzin comes back and is like, the wolves are gone. And Wex is like, yeah, and they are not in their beds. And he commands that everybody be brought into the yard to... It just makes it milkshakes, man. But he hears them sobbing, and you get this amazing, amazing internal monologue here that I just live for this shit. I've used them gently, and this is how they repay me. They still blame me for that rape and the rest. And he's like, he had to give someone to the drowned god. His men expected it. You'd think the others might be grateful he hadn't chosen one of them, but no. And I just love, like, he really just doesn't get why everybody hates him so much. And it's like, he wondered how many of them were part of this plot against him. And I'm like, you usurped, like, dude, of course you're the enemy. Really, like, it's wild that he thinks they're going to look on him with any sort of merciful eye. What are you on, dude?
Yeah. He's swinging wildly back and forth between this idea that these are people that he's known, that knew him. Because later on, there's a moment where he's like, they won't even look him in the eye. And it's like, yeah, no, they absolutely hate you. And he gets it.
Yep.
He's like, oh, they hate me. But he's all, like, surprised and hurt about it.
Yeah, genuinely, like, they hate me because they're ungrateful. Mm-hmm. Not because I deserve to be hated. It's just crazy. So, and also the guys who were supposed to be guarding the area where they think the kids broke out from are both dead.
Oh, yeah, when they get down to that one gate over back by the kennels, I guess, or whatever, where they think they snuck out, and the one guy is the wolves got to him, dire wolves got to him, and he is just a mess.
Yep.
You know, and then the other one looks like his throat's been cut.
And his pants are around his ankles, and very clearly somebody was like, ooh, why don't you come over here, big boy?
Yeah, and just like a sucker, fell for it, because they will fall for it every time. And so, so he's like, is going to have a search party, and they're going to, because Theon is thinking, and it's fair to think this, that they couldn't have gotten that far, because who's missing is it's Bran and Rickon, Hodor, and Osha.
Right.
And then in the Reed kids.
Yeah.
So the thought is that they couldn't have gotten very far because there aren't any horses missing, so they're on foot. You have Bran, who Hodor has to carry, and Rickon, who's still a toddler, so most likely he's being carried as well. Mm-hmm. So Theon feels pretty confident that they're going to be able to find them, you know. It does not go that way.
It sure doesn't. And this is also, I should mention too, the reason that Theon didn't have guards on them was because, like, Rickon's a child and Bran's crippled.
Yeah, and he only has a limited number of men with him. That he took. What is this? He took Winterfell with like 30 men, and it's a big ass place. So he has, to be careful with where he puts his men. So he's got them, like, guarding the wall and guarding some of the gates and, guarding his room. Shit that, like, makes sense. And he really feels like, oh, they're two kids. Don't need guards on them. Now, he does continually berate himself for choosing or ignoring or not acting on getting rid of the direwolves the first day he's there.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, like, I feel like we know why he didn't do that, right?
Of course.
He doesn't seem to be able to admit exactly why he didn't do it. But he keeps beating himself up. I knew how dangerous they were. I should have fucking put them down the very first day we got here. And I'm curious if he's going to have any kind of awareness about that choice.
Yeah.
Or if it's the kind of thing that someone else will throw in his face.
I just also, like, can't, because we're talking around it, but I'm assuming that your feeling is that he couldn't bear to do it because there's still a certain amount of loyalty that he feels. Is that what you're thinking? I'm sort of thinking he just can't do it. Literally.
I don't think it's loyalty. Well, let me ask you. When you say he literally can't do it, you mean like he wouldn't be able to put them down? Like they would get away?
Yeah, because those direwolves will bite him in half. I just don't see him being able to pull that off.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking like, like if they wanted to, like he's like very good with an arrow.
That's true.
There are ways they don't have to like fight the dogs. So if they wanted to, you know what I mean? Like they could manage it.
But the dogs are like connected to Bran. Like I just could see them being like ducking and weaving the way that we wished Rickon did in the show.
Oh my god. I don't know if loyalty is the word, but I will say a certain amount of sentimentality is why I think he couldn't do it. I think that in his mind, and this is going to sound like not sound very smart because it's not, but I think for Theon, there are things that he can, in his mind, things that he can do, like take Winterfell, and still be beloved like he expects to be. Right? Because he hasn't, air quotes, hurt anybody yet, as far as, like, the Stark kids go. Right?
Okay. Right.
But, like, killing the direwolves would be something he couldn't walk back from.
Yeah. Okay. I see
that's what I like. So, and again, and is this a Theon weakness? Kind of.
I mean, yeah.
Like this sort of walking this fine line and not like performatively he's fully committed to being Ironborn and all this other nonsense. But we know from being in his head that he's really not. He doesn't know what the fuck he is. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, killing the direwolves is something a person who has decided who and what they are and what they need to do does that. And Theon just isn't that yet.
Yeah, Theon really he still wants everybody to like him.
Very much so.
He wants his dad's approval for sure, but he wants everybody's approval in this way that's just impossible to accomplish. Like, you're going to be the bad guy to somebody if you're accomplishing anything.
Right. And he's even when he's talking about disciplining those men for the rape or the attempted rape and how people weren't grateful for him for doing, doing that. He just is... I don't know. He just is not someone with any sort of real integrity or any real, like, principles or even, like, a guiding sort of moral compass, He's just kind of like wherever the wind blows,
So he gathers everybody together. And basically is like, so who is going to help me go after them? And of course, everybody is just like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Reek shows up to be super helpful. Oh.
Reek is just like, why don't you, like, skin them to get some information?
Yeah, he's the one that tells, like, he's the one that comes up with exactly who's missing, and how many people are missing. It ends up going out, I think, on the hunt as well, which Theon just be letting any old body.
Anybody who seems at all remotely on his side, he clings to because he doesn't have anybody.
Yeah.
So there's this, like, fucking nobody, but they seem like they'll do what he says, and that's enough for him.
Yeah.
Dude. Raise your standards. It's pitiful. And yeah, so he starts to do the whole come first light, I mean to bring them back. And who wants a nice warm wolfskin to see them through the winter? Gage? The cook had always greeted him cheerfully when he returned from the hunt to ask whether he'd brought anything choice for the table, but he had nothing to say now. Yeah, you think? And then the wild is no place for a cripple. And he's talking to Nan at this point. Rickon, young as he is, how long will he last out there? Nan, think how frightened he'll be. And she doesn't volunteer anything. I don't know what he expected to get from her.
Yeah.
And then, I might have killed every man of you and given your women to my soldiers for their pleasure, but instead I protected you. Is this the thanks you offer? And yeah, this is when Reek steps forward and is like, go ahead and just skin them. And Theon is like, I will never skin anyone in Winterfell, trying to really be like, look what a good guy I am, everybody.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. And he's just, and then he's just like to himself, well, you know, I have to be subtle.
I can't believe this guy. He really thinks that was subtle.
But maybe some of these people are smart enough to be hip to what I'm saying.
Right. And then later on, he's like, if we don't come back, do with what you will with Winterfell. That should teach them to hope that I come back in one piece. And I'm like,
God.
They hope? What? Who cares what they hope? Like,
Right.
what do you think that's doing?
Yeah. He just, like you said, he needs to, like, be loved. You know, he's doing this thing where it's like, oh, well, fear is as good as love, but he's so desperate,
Yeah.
you know, for validation, you know, because he's got all those daddy issues that...
Mm-hmm.
So, he also asks Lewin to join.
Yeah.
And he is like, I don't hunt.
And he's like, well, I guess you're going to learn tonight, dude. Oh, my God. And he goes over to the kennel master and is like, you're going to help me hunt them down? And the dude's like, why the fuck should I do that? And he's like, I got your daughter, basically.
Yeah. And
I
then
hate that.
fucking, doesn't he say, what does he say? He says, I protected your daughter, or did he...
He says, I am your true-born lord now, and the man who keeps Paula safe.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get a fucking duplicitous Frey who wants the cloak.
Yeah.
And claims that he's an experienced hunter and all this other kind of stuff. And then an even more duplicitous Frey pipes up that, oh, he's not that good at all. He's never really been hunting.
Yep. And Theon lets him come too. And he does the whole like, well, if you can't keep up, we're leaving you. But I'm just like, man.
Just leave them in the first place.
Indeed. Indeed.
So,
I can't stand this guy.
So, all these people, it's 11 men, 2 kids, a bunch of dogs. They all go out, and, you know, there's some discussion on, like, which way they should have gone. He thinks that Osha would have gone south, but the trail they're following with the dogs is leading them north.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is when he starts thinking, like, God damn it, what if they just start heading right to Deepwood Moat? Like, that would suck for me. Then Lewin starts, like, trying to work on him a little bit. You know, about, like, being merciful. And, first thing he's like, so far hunting seems indistinguishable from riding through the woods.
And Theon, actually, I kind of thought that he was going to get snarky about it, but he, like, kind of laughs at that a little bit.
A little bit. And then he just ends with, like, but with hunting, there's blood at the end. And that's when Lewin is like, you know, does it have to be?
Mm-hmm.
And they talk a little bit, you know, Lewin is like, these are your foster brothers. Like, don't forget who it is we're hunting for. And this is when Theon is just like, nobody but Robb was ever even brotherly to me. But he concedes that Bran and Rickon are more valuable living.
Right.
And then this is when Lewin is
and
like...
And the Jojen and Meera are... They're valuable alive.
Yeah, and that's what Lewin says to him. And Theon hadn't thought about that. And that is like, you know... Oh, okay, you know what? He's making a really good point. Maybe I'll spare them as well. So now Lewin is like, what about Hodor?
Yeah, he's pushing his luck a little bit. Eventually Theon is like, all right, look, but I'm killing that wildling bitch,
right?
Though.
That's exactly what ends up happening.
Yep.
And Lewin is like, look, I don't have nothing to say about Oathbreakers. Like, you do what you gotta do when it comes to that. So this hunt, which is a terrible hunt.
Too, when he's like, a pity Ned Stark had taken his daughters.
Yeah, talking about, she was a pretty little thing, and by now likely even ripe for bedding. Which, I mean, this was your... I know you didn't consider them sisters, and they didn't treat you as a brother, and so... But you were still raised in the house with them, and have known them since they were, you know, babies.
Yeah.
And it just, it boggles the mind how things like that don't seem to always matter to people. I would personally find it very difficult to overlook. Yeah, but I guess it's not a problem for everybody.
I guess I'm just built different.
Right? So this fucking hunt, it's not going well. They are realizing that there's some animals that have been killed, butchered, maimed.
Not butchered, actually.
Yeah, well,
sort of the specific thing that he zeroes in on.
They have been clearly set upon by wolves, but Theon notices that the animal, to your point, hasn't been butchered by men, so no meat has been taken to like eat for later. And Theon realizes that Osha must not have wanted to risk a fire. Oh no, he says even if she didn't want to risk a fire, she still should have taken meat to go.
Yeah, I think that he initially is like, then these aren't the right wolves we're following. And eventually, what's his face is like Gage, I think, right? Or is it not Gage? What's the guy's name who runs the wolves? He basically says they're probably
Garrus?
Not keeping the wolves right beside them. Like the wolves are going off and hunting, and they like might be separated at times, but they won't be very far off. And that seems to be sort of how they operate for the rest of this, is like, we're tracking the wolves not because they'll lead us directly to them, but because they will be going in the same general direction that Bran and Rickon are going to be going.
Yeah, when they realize that this probably happened while the wolves were separate from the rest of the group, there's a thinking that, and I think he sends some people back to try to figure out where the wolves and the humans would have split from the trail. Mm-hmm. But then Theon and a couple of people he takes to continue following the trail of the wolves with the idea that eventually they'll just loop back around to meet up with the rest of the group.
Right.
So the groups that he has out looking for them kind of split in half. And then his group follows like the brook or whatever on each side.
Right.
Thinking that, like, that way, no matter which side of the bank the wolves get out of the stream, we'll be able to see. Mm-hmm. I think there's also a bit, too, where somebody notices that, I think it might have even been Wex, that, like, the prints in the mud by the stream, like, if they had been here, Hodor's prints would be sinking like way down deep into the mud.
Right, yeah.
And the only like tracks of men anywhere near them are from their own party, and that's kind of like the last bit of evidence that I don't know if this is pulled off on purpose or if they just, didn't take into account that this is how the wolves operate.
This is what I was going to ask you, actually. Do you think that they just couldn't track them down, or do you think Garrus is purposely misleading Theon?
I don't know. Theon asked him directly, and he swears it. But, and also because we know as readers that, like, we've seen Jon and Ghost enough, that we know that, the wolves will break away and go on a hunt, and,
right.
And then come back to their master. Like, that's just sort of how they get down. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem unlikely to me that this is what's happened. Whether or not Garrus, I guess it's possible that he might have realized this is what's happened way earlier than the rest of the group. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's not necessarily misleading them, right? But maybe he realized, oh, we're tracking wolves now, but the people aren't on this trail. And he just decided to let the dogs keep going. You know what I mean? So then he's got a certain amount
just
of
to
like
waste some time.
Yeah, and like give the kids like, you know, more time to get away.
Right.
And then he has a certain amount of like plausible deniability, you know, because the dogs are really tracking the wolves the best that they can. And you know, how do you prove that Garrus realized earlier?
Right.
You know, so he's got he possibly a story that he can stick to. But, I don't know. Theon agrees with Garrus saying the direwolves would not part from the boys for long.
Right.
And when he says that, when Garrus says that, and Theon agrees, it's like Theon almost being like, alright, well, I'm gonna take your story for now. Like, I still have some lingering doubts, but for now, I'm not going to press it.
It's interesting to me, like, because when you want to see in a leader somebody who will take another person's advice into consideration. You don't want somebody who just dismisses things out of hand because they don't trust people or because they think there's like a plot or whatever. There is a happy medium between taking somebody's advice into consideration and just believing everything you're told. I don't think Theon believes everything he's told, but he does seem to be leadable. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like if you spin a story that's got any logic to it at all, he seems willing to fall for it.
He's the highly suggestible type.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like some Homer Simpson kind of,
God.
I'll trade you your cruddy old donut for a delicious doorstop.
Oh, God. But yeah, I it's just the kind of thing that I read it with such mixed feelings because I appreciate that he listens at all, but it's just mixed with his POV and seeing how, just easy to fool he can be.
Yeah, the other thing, too, about Theon that I find that I have to remind myself of is that, and I think we talked about this before, unlike his sister, unlike Robb, he was not trained to lead.
Right.
Right? And that really means something. I mean, I wasn't trained to lead, so I don't know exactly what it means. But I'm sure it means something. You know what I mean? Like, No one has been teaching him how... Like, those snippets we get of Robb through Kat, when she's talking about how he deals with his men and takes their counsel, but, all this other stuff. And she frequently remarks, oh, you can tell he was studying at Ned's, knee this whole time. There's none of that for Theon. No one taught him how to read men, how to be wary of other people's ulterior motives, how to take in people's advice and their observations and their counsel, but still make decisions that are yours.
Right.
He's just really lacking in all of those skills. Because he doesn't know what he's doing. And
he just doesn't know what he's doing.
And he doesn't seem to know in any real way that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yep.
It's like he thinks that being a leader is simply just the result of being the male heir of someone with a title.
100%. I don't think he appreciates the training that other people have had because it's not like he's going around going, man, I really wish that somebody had taught me so and so. He doesn't even think about that because he believes that he is such a natural leader. He just needs some time to show that he is, and it's like just a foregone conclusion to him.
And it's telling to me, at least in these early bits, that he doesn't ever seem to lament that he didn't get that kind of training. And there's not much talk about what he thought of the training that Robb was getting his entire life with Ned.
Yeah.
I don't really know what Theon thought of that. Did he think it was a waste of time? Was he jealous? Did he eavesdrop and pick up some things? I don't know. So all I know is... Or
was he like, well, maybe he needs to be taught, but I don't need to be taught?
So, like, I don't... That's what it feels like, but I don't know that. But so it's hard for me to decide if Theon understands just how much he doesn't know.
Yeah. And even if he did, would he admit it to himself? Because he just works so heavily with denial.
Yeah.
I feel like he wouldn't let himself really, like, think about it, even if he did suspect.
That's the thing about these POVs with Theon, is that a lot of times his insecurities, they do slip out in his inner monologue. They're brief. He doesn't do a lot of digging into them. But they kind of, like, slip out, and then he just, like, keeps going full steam ahead and with whatever plan he's got or whatever's happening. But I haven't seen any of these, like, these moments where he's doubting himself have not been around that particular thing. The doubts he has about himself have much more to do with a specific action that he did or did not take. Like killing the direwolves, or whatever, or what if the kids reach the village? What if the kids get to Asha first? That kind of like insecurity and doubting. But no, like, do I know what the fuck I'm doing? Like, I don't get a lot of those.
What is it like to not have imposter syndrome?
Right.
So, the wolves went downstream, that's all. He clung to that thought. That red bitch will sniff where they came out of the water and will be after them again. But when they joined up with Farland's party, one look at the Kennelmaster's face smashed all of Theon's hopes to shards. And he says, we're just going to keep on, we'll find the place.
He tries to blame the dogs.
Yep. And... it was the same tale all over again when they rejoined Garrus, Merch, and Igar. The huntsmen had retraced their steps halfway to Winterfell without finding any sign of where the Starks might have parted company with the direwolves. Farland's hounds seemed as frustrated as their masters, sniffing forlornly at trees and rocks and snapping irritably at each other.
Yeah.
And so this goes on until, like, the Frey boy is just like, well, these... weird bog
these frog eaters. He's just like, these mudmen can fucking breathe bog water and grow moss under their arms, and their castles float, Did you hear about that shit? These motherfuckers float. They move.
I love that the moss grows under their arms. That is just like, that feels like the exact kind of thing that kids would believe if they were told,
And he's like, they might be out there right now listening to everything we say. And, oh my God. Somebody is like, the dogs would smell them if they were out there. And he's like, no, they don't smell like men. And then, Lewin, because Theon is about to, like, I don't even know what he's about to do. Probably smack this kid in the fucking face.
Probably.
But Lewin says that there are histories that say that the Crannogmen grew close to the children of the forest, and maybe they do have secrets that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. And he says that, and all of a sudden, everything starts to feel very creepy for everybody.
Yeah. And this is one, like, I'm like, does he believe that, or is he just saying this because he wants to unnerve Theon.
I like to think it's the latter.
Yeah, me
I like
too.
to think that he took advantage of an opportunity to just slide in enough doubt and creepiness, and just enough to kind of derail. And it feels like it almost works, but then Theon is just like, no, we're going back to the stream.
So, at this point, Theon is like, I am going to kill these wolves. I may kill these kids. I have fucking had it. He is so embarrassed and so...
Yeah.
Like, he actually says at one point he could taste bile at the back of his throat.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of anxious where it's just makes you feel sick.
He is thinking to himself, if he's going back to Winterfell without these kids, that's it for him. It's over. Like, who is going to take him fucking seriously? And the fact that these children, who can't even walk on their own, bested him and got away. Everyone is going to fucking hear about it. His sister's going to hear about it. His father's going to hear about it. He is spiraling. And then right at this moment, Reek is here, whispering in his ear.
Yeah.
And he starts to tell him that I think I know where they are. If I were them, I would go to the Umbers. And says the boys will shelter someplace near, and I might know where. And that's when they start talking about the mill, which is when we find out that Theon hit through her a fuck or two.
Good God. I really want to know how that went down, because, I
mean,
yeah.
The miller's wife, he's, who knows what the miller's doing? We know
and my question is always, too, how much does Theon care about consent? Because it doesn't seem like very much. He says something about how, oh, sure, I'm going to be left to rape the ugly women at one point when he's being assigned to do the Reaver's work.
Oh, God, that's right, yeah.
So, he's talking about it like, yeah, we rolled in the hay a couple times, and I'm like, did you? Or did you, rape this woman? Who knows?
I'd like to think that, I have nothing, this is based on absolutely nothing, but I like to think that when he was a ward of the Starks, he was, just banging every girl he could, but that it was consensual. Because he would not want word of that to get back to Ned. And the threat of that would have been enough to kind of keep him in line.
Yeah.
But
that I can buy that.
But yeah, that's just something I say to make myself feel better.
Moving on.
Yeah, so then Reek tells him, he gets off his horse and he has like this duffel thing, this sack that he had been carrying. And Theon puts his hand in there and there's something sharp that pricks his skin, and it's cold and hard, and it's a wolf's head brooch, silver and jet.
Yeah.
And this means something to Theon immediately. It says, understanding came suddenly. His hand closed into a fist. And he realizes, he says Gelmar, and then this is when he realizes he can't trust anybody. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what this is.
Oh, okay. I kind of thought you would. But since you don't.
Oh, you're not going to explain it to me.
Why would I do that? No.
I wasn't sure if it was considered a spoiler or if it was just something basic that I wasn't getting.
If you don't know what it is, it's a spoiler. Basically, I'm trying to operate as much as I can on you are going to have as much information as any of us had when we first read these. So I don't want to give you anything if you haven't, almost completely figured it out already and you're just needing clarification on a thing or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, since you have no idea, I'm not going to just tell you all of it.
Okay.
Because we didn't get to find out what it was until we got to find out.
Oh, well, no, that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say, like, so I wasn't sure if this was, like, something that I should get based on what I've read up to this point, or if it was something that, like, some people got and some people didn't get. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a thing that you could get, but I think probably many didn't. And as far as I remember, I believe the show does this. So, yeah. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. So, yeah, he says, he sends people back to Winterfell. He tells everybody he knows where they are. And then Lewin is just like, remember you promised mercy. And Theon is like, mercy was for this morning. So I know in the show, you know, he ends up just grabbing two innocent boys and pretending it's Bran and Rickon. Mm-hmm. But, so I don't know if this I know where they are now is real and they know where they are, or if this idea that Reek has is the idea to grab two kids and pretend it's them Reek's idea in the book, because, you know, there's no Reek at this point in the show. And I also don't know if the silver brooch thing, like, I'm not sure if, I don't know what that is. I mean, that's the brooch that Bran wore around his cloak or something, right? Well, I don't know, because they all had, like, that kind of shit, so I don't know who it belongs to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
All right, so then we go into Jon's chapter. And they are making their way, they're following this fire that they can see lit, which they all agree that if these people are Mance Rayder's people, he would be very displeased at the fact that his folk are out here lighting fires when they should fucking know better. And Corin Halfhand is just like, yeah, it's quite a balance that you have to strike, because if you don't have fire in this cold, you will die.
Right.
But if you have fire, there's a chance that you will die because of that. So, gotta sort of take your chances on that one.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
And they say that they can see that it's only two people, which I think is astounding. But they have decided that there's only two people up there, and that if you can get to them before they can alert everybody else, it'll be, you know, quite the coup, because these guys are, I'm assuming, are supposed to be watching out for the Night's Watch guys, you know?
Right.
And not only did they light a fire that shows exactly where they are and how many of them there are, but if we can get the jump on them, then, like, that's even better for us. But they are at the very top of a terrible cliff thing, you know, pretty sheltered by very inhospitable terrain, which is probably why they felt comfortable lighting a fire, because they were probably like, well, who can sneak up on us up here, you know?
Yeah.
But then, turns out...
Yeah, this is what you were saying earlier about how he describes this whole thing. First of all, you saying how it's wild to you that they can tell that there's only two people. Do you ever, like, really stop and think about how absolutely useless you would be due to your eyesight in a world that doesn't have, like, contact lenses and glasses?
Absolutely.
Oh my god, I would be dead. I would be dead. I bet I would be dead.
Yeah.
Forget it.
I wouldn't have lived past, like, 8. Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know what people did. Christ.
They let their children die because they couldn't see. That's what
I
they
guess,
did.
yeah. I always think about this in terms of, like, the zombie apocalypse, you know. I would be, one of the first things that I would do would be go and raid places for a supply of my medication and contact lenses. And I would definitely, like, want glasses, but those have to be sort of manufactured according to your measurements. That's lovely and everything, but, you know, contacts, I'll be fine. I'll take those. I won't take them out for, like, several years at a time. They will destroy my eyes, but I won't get eaten by zombies, so that's a fair trade, in my opinion. I always just, like, am surprised in zombie fiction that sort of thing isn't talked about more. Because that's the stuff that everyday people are going to be concerned about, in my opinion.
Yep.
You know?
It's whenever you, like, I mean, I haven't watched any kind of zombie show since The Walking Dead, but my recollection, there's very few people that wear glasses in any of those fucking TV shows.
True.
And even when they do have a character that wears glasses, they never fucking address it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, how fucked he would be if he fell and broke his glasses. Or, you know, like in a fight or running away from a horde or like any other of the million life-threatening things that happen week to week. Like, you could just fuck up his whole shit by just breaking his fucking glasses.
Yeah. So, yeah, he says, but 2 men, I think they're like to be 2 up there sharing the watch. Me, the ranger they called Stone Snake, had already shown he was the best climber among them. It would have to be him. And me, said Jon Snow. Corinne Halfhand looked at him. Jon could hear the wind keening as it shivered through the high pass above them. And Corinne is like, all right, look, the wolf really can't go. They're going to see him. When it's done, throw down a burning brand. We'll come when we see it fall. And Stone Snake is like, all right, let's fucking go. And I kept thinking of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. That just kept occurring to me. And then we get the description of, like, such an agonizing climb.
Yeah, it just fucking goes on forever, and I was, like, not here for any of it. There's a moment where, like, you know, he's not wearing gloves because he needs to be able to really grip well and have, like, fine touch, and he can't do that with the gloves. And, you know, his burnt hand is all aching. He, like, slices open a thumb at one point. He almost falls, like, his foot slips, and, you know, he doesn't fall, but, like, for a split second, his whole life flashes before his eyes. There's lots of, like, don't look down, don't look down. Yeah, it just goes on. And when it was over, I was just like, thank fucking God. Ugh.
I love it so much. I just love this in somebody else's hands could have been so boring. You know, just like they climbed the cliff. His stomach was in his mouth the entire time. The wind whistled below him. And you're like, yeah. But this, the detail of every single bit of his body that hurts and how it hurts and the ways that he hurts himself even more, and details about that you wouldn't have thought about, like the fact that he can't have his gloves on, all like it's just so rich. There's so much, you know. I love it. And the fucking thing that I always come back to with shit like this, there are people out there in the world who do this shit for fun. Yeah. And you all are sick in the head. That's all I'm gonna say. Y'all need therapy. They're just what is fun? Just genuine, like, no.
I will say,
absolutely not.
I like that there's a moment where he thinks of Bran and how much Bran used to like to climb, and he thinks to himself how he wishes he had a tenth of his courage. And of course, that's especially sweet after coming off of the Theon chapter. Yeah. Yeah, the people who do this shit for like funsies, like, get better meds. I don't know what else to tell you about your life choices.
Oh, man.
I also like I mean, obviously we're in Jon's head, so it's his POV, but throughout, as harrowing as this is for Jon, Stone Snake is just plugging right along.
Oh my gosh. This guy's making a grocery list in his head. He could not be less worried.
I mean, that's what it appears like. Like, again, we don't know. But it really does seem like he's chilling. Like, he's just like, follow me. Mm-hmm. When the rope gets taut, you're going to just want to hang on and try not to look down. And then doesn't even wait to make sure Jon understands everything. He doesn't wait for an answer or nothing. He's just like, here we go.
Oh, man.
But,
that's the way you got to do it. You got to, like a Band-Aid, just go.
I think you're right.
I mean, even, I'm just such a wuss when it comes to heights. It's like something that, it's not even just that I'm afraid of them when I'm there. I can't watch Owen playing certain video games because there's so much like jumping from one cliff or one big, what are they called? The platforms, I guess. I'm not even kidding, guys. I have gotten extremely anxious just playing like Mario. Like jumping on, there's like pits that you can fall into that you have to jump over, and sometimes you fall into them. And my stomach will just jump from the fall. Like, it's an 8-bit side scroller, and I'm still so anxious about that. And then there's actual realistic games, and I can't handle that at all. And we went to see Spider-Man this past weekend. There were a couple times where I just like almost thought I was going to be sick and had to just like grip the seat and look down and take some breaths. You don't have any trouble with the ride though? Like the Spider-Man ride? The rides feel so safe that it doesn't like, it feels more like I have some control over it somehow because I'm actually in it versus like watching a game that I, first of all, don't feel like I'm very good at these games to begin with, so I'm unsure of myself, or I'm watching Owen play, so I have literally no control. And I'm just watching him flail around, and like try and land on a platform. We watched the Beatles documentary that's on, I guess it's Disney Plus, and because of course we did, and it was phenomenal. But the climax is the rooftop performance that they do, which is like their last live performance ever. Mm-hmm. Me and Steve are watching, and they climb up to the roof to like, in anticipation of setting this up for the performance. Like, hey, can we do it up here? What's it look like? Mm-hmm. There are no guardrails. Oh my god. That shit is just flat until you get to the edge, and then boom, that's it. Like, there's no like raised even 2 or 3 inches of anything. It's just completely flat until it's nothing there. And they're just hopping and skipping and looking over, and the camera is like leaning over. Me and Steve are both on the couch looking everywhere but at the TV. Like, we couldn't do it. We couldn't watch it. I'm saying, this is what I mean. And like, don't get me wrong, there are some of these rides where I do have to like slam my eyes shut and just let myself calm down for a minute. It's not like but it's different when you're expecting it. You go on a ride knowing that I'm doing this because it's going to be a thrill. And I will just straight up forget what these games are like. So I'll come and hang out with Owen in his office to like chill and relax and hang out with him. And then realize, like, oh, God, I gotta leave. Like, I can't. This isn't relaxing. I'm not having fun. This is making me so anxious. So, yeah, just the idea that people, like, do this. What even is going through your head that you're like, it's the weekend. I really want to simulate falling off a cliff repeatedly. And also, like, half the time these people have to rely on their partners. When you're, like... Yeah, there's a certain level of trust that I just don't have. Yeah. I just keep thinking about that Seinfeld episode. Oh, my God. Hunky Tony. Hunky Tony. Hey.
What does he call him? A mimbo?
He's a male bimbo.
He's a mimbo.
But yeah, it's George, right? Who's
Step
like
off.
not paying attention,
Yeah.
and this guy is supposed to be secured.
Yeah, he's digging around for a fucking sandwich. Kramer is like not paying attention either, and he just fucking falls.
Nope. Yeah. Couldn't be me. Nobody that I'm putting my life in their hands like that.
So they finally get to the top, and they get to jump on the two people. Only it turns out that there's three of them.
Yeah.
There is a very short-lived little battle. Jon is really impressed that the guy that he's going after, who has the horn, has to make a decision. Like, when he realizes that Jon is there, he can go for a knife or he can go for a horn. He can't do both. And he goes for the horn, and Jon is really impressed by that. Because that shows a real commitment to your job and the well-being of your people versus your immediate own well-being. And then Jon goes for this third person, grips him up, and then is like, it's a her.
It's a woman.
And he completely forgets how to be like a person who's out here trying to fight wildlings. And just it all goes to shit because it's a girl. Because Jon Snow has not been taught how to kill women, only how to fight men, and that is a real shortcoming of this universe.
True.
So
it's a real Harry Dresden moment in some ways.
So he just, instead of killing her, asks her if she'll yield. And she does. And he decides that she's our captive. And fucking Stone Snake is just like, what? What do you want? And he says, he calls her a spear wife.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like that.
Yeah, it's a fun name.
Yeah. And it tells Jon that, like, she will fucking jab that shit right in your eye the minute you turn your back on her.
He says that she's not going to tell you shit. I saw a wildling bite his own tongue out rather than give out any information. And honestly,
right.
I wish that I could have that kind of commitment to anything because...
Listen, and then... Jon Snow does more talking than his fucking captive.
Oh my God.
Because, Jesus Christ, I swear to God.
Look, he knows nothing.
Yeah, I mean, is that from the book, or did the show just make that up?
I mean, who knows? I know.
So they're trying to find out, like, are there more wildlings nearby, and blah, 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 and, they're not, she's not telling him nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks her, were you sent to watch us? And she says, you and others. They want to know how many free folk are beyond the pass. She says hundreds and thousands. They don't believe her.
Yeah.
Well, Jon says she doesn't know how many. He asks why come here. She doesn't answer. He asks her again, why are you in the Frostfangs? She doesn't answer. And then still saying, like, if she spits her tongue out, don't say I didn't warn you. Then there's some shadow cats. And the thing earlier...
She's very relaxed about it. She's just like, oh, they're not after us. It's fine.
Well, but because after they killed the two guys, she's like, you have to burn them.
Yeah.
And they can't because, I guess fire. You can't, like, let everybody know that they're there. Mm-hmm. So, he, takes their bodies and just dumps them over, like, the ledge?
Yeah.
Down into, like, a lower crevasse?
Yeah, I think that the assumption is just, like, if they break up into enough pieces, they won't be able to walk around.
I thought the assumption was that if they come back to life, they are far enough away from them to not be an immediate threat.
Ah, interesting. Okay, we took that very differently.
But it turns out the cats just solved that problem for both of us.
Yeah, that was pretty convenient.
So
cats are out here like, we need to get on that before it turns into that live shit that we don't like to eat, because that's nasty. I really could imagine that tastes bad.
Oh, you know it's the worst. It's all like freezer burned.
Oh, that's perfect. Yep, I believe it. So yeah, when they get back to Curran Halfhand, he is just like, "Are you serious? What are you doing, dude? We can't have
I'm
this."
so embarrassed for him.
I know.
I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be, but I really was. I was deeply embarrassed for him. I mean, I get that, like, story-wise, and I remember from the show that this goes some very interesting places, and he ends up being able to sort of, you know, ingratiate himself to Mance Rayder, and a lot of it has to do with her vouching for him and all that other jazz. But that's future shit. Right now shit is that he is on his first, like, away mission for real. Yeah. You know? And the first thing he does is, like, punk out. Mm-hmm. But I can't kill her because she's a girl.
Yep.
You know, which is not a good reason not to kill somebody. I mean, all right, maybe I don't want to go on record with that statement. but you guys know what I mean.
Let somebody cut that soundbite. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that, like, when a lot of us were reading this, the whole thing is supposed to be sort of, like, romantic in a way. Not even romantic, like sexually romantic, but more like Jon is such a good man that he will risk the ire of his, like, superiors to do the right thing, the way that Ned Stark would do the right thing.
Yeah.
And, like, I did feel that way the first time I read this, back when I was much more of a sweet summer child.
Oh, really?
I did, yeah. I was much less like, what are you doing, dude? And much more like, well, of course he doesn't want to kill her. That's how it always goes with these types, you know? And now I have a lot less patience for it. I just, like, honestly, in many ways, have a lot less patience for Jon Snow in general than I had the first time I read through this.
I can see that. I mean, well, obviously coming from the show, you know, I already have, like, Jon Snow baggage, which is unfortunate. But, you know, what can you do? You can't go back. But, this is just, because the thing is, like, what I will say about this is that I guess it's an interesting sort of comparison between, like, Jon thinks it is, like, morally wrong,
right,
to, like, kill a woman, even though he had no compunction about killing those other two guys. You know, he didn't cherish it, but he was able to, like, do it, right? So his whole value system, for good or bad, is just a very specific, rigid thing, and and compared to how the free folk live, which I guess we'll get into. You know, it's a very different society. It's just set up very different. Their values are so different, you know. So his sort of, like, righteousness, you know, I'm a decent and good man, and I can't kill a woman in this manner because that's not what a good man does. It's so subjective.
Yeah.
And to me is boring. But also, like, Jon Snow is boring at this point. You know, he's from Winterfell, which is also kind of boring. You know, you know,
shit.
Like, you know, the fun part is, at least from what I remember from the show, is that when he later on sees an entirely different way to live, and a different, you know, and it opens up his ideas a bit. But right now, he's still just, you know, just like Ned Stark. He's just like Ned Jr., you know, and everything is so
limited.
Everything's limited. Everything is very black and white, you know. And yeah, boring. But meanwhile, his brothers at the Night Watch also have a very different value system, you know, and have been fighting this endless war with these people. And when they say fucking kill her, they mean that shit. Like,
yeah, they
you
do.
know. And the best they can give him is that, like, all right, well, he's too embarrassed to do it in front of us. So we have to give him some privacy to do it.
I swear to God.
And
I had forgotten that.
Yeah, and then he just lets her run away. Mm-hmm. Which, again, I'm embarrassed for you. Also, Lord Commander vouched for you. And this is how you're making him, like it's just, it's bad form. It's bad form.
So there is a story that she tells in the midst of all of this. And it's a story about this guy named Bael. And I'm going to read just the intro. She says, long before he was king over the free folk, Bael was a great raider. And Stone Snake is like, oh, a murderer, robber, and raper. And she's like, well, depends on how you want to fucking look at it.
Yeah, it depends on where you're standing. I love that because they were talking about, she calls them from the South. And he's like, Winterfell's not the South. And she's like, I guess it depends on where you're standing. And then when he says the thing about being a raper and a robber, she's like, I guess it depends on where you're standing.
So she says, the Stark in Winterfell wanted Bael's head, but never could take him, and the taste of failure galled him. One day, in his bitterness, he called Bael a craven who preyed only on the weak. When word of that got back, Bael vowed to teach the Lord a lesson, so he scaled the wall, skipped down the King's Road, and walked into Winterfell one winter's night with his harp in his hand, naming himself Sigaric of Skagos. Sigaric means deceiver in the old tongue that the first men spoke, and the giants still speak. And basically, the whole story goes that this dude runs off with Brandon's daughter, and it's like, you know, he sort of does this little tricky thing where he's, oh, your singing is so wonderful, what can I give you to repay you? And he's like, I want the most beautiful flower in your garden.
Obviously,
the flower turns out to be the daughter.
It's obviously your daughter, dude.
Of course.
Why do you not see that? Oh, he sends his people to the greenhouse to get the most precious white rose. What? What? But okay.
So, and throughout this, I should mention that Jon keeps being like, "This didn't happen. This is bullshit. This didn't happen." Oh, which Brandon was it? And she's just like, "Brandon the daughterless. Shut the fuck up." And I was like, honestly, that's fair. And eventually, after this girl disappears, and they send people out to try and find them, and no avail, and this dude is like so devastated, and months go by. He gets woken up by a sound of a child crying, and he goes to his daughter's room, and there she is with a babe at her breast, and she has actually never left Winterfell.
I was laughing when I read this because I was like, what if Bran and Rickon are still at Winterfell?
What if indeed? So yeah, this is the little story about like the way that the blood of the Starks and the wildlings are like mixed together. Right. And essentially she's telling Jon, we are of the same lineage.
And not only, like later in the story, I guess there's the son grows up and ends up fighting Bael and takes his head back to his mother, who's the Stark, and she sees that her son has killed the father, and then she throws herself off like the highest tower.
That sounds right. That's how these stories all go, right? The son has to kill the father. Mm-hmm. This is some Oedipal shit or whatever.
Every time.
He doesn't sleep with his mom, though, I guess.
That we
maybe
know
Maybe that
of.
part of the story is just not what they tell.
It's a different song.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love this part. She says, when he tells her, your Bael was a liar. No, but a bard's truth is different than yours or mine. And I was like, that's an interesting way to say that. I kind of like it. It's sort of meaningless, but also, like, I get what she's saying.
Yeah, I like it a lot, too. Because really, you know, they're storytellers. They're the writers, they're the singers, you know, the poets. They're not the fucking Citadel. You know, they're not taking down an accurate history of Westeros. They're just, you know what I mean? So,
yep.
And I like that, like, when he says that, like, you're whoever was a liar. Like, he thinks he is making this, like, threat that's going to wound her personally. Like, she's going to get all affronted and offended. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, he really thought
she's very practical.
Yeah, like, he really thought she was going to, like, want to, like, duel him because he insulted, you know, this guy who's been dead 100 years or whatever.
So, yeah, then we get to Corinne being like, you know what you have to do. We're going to leave you to it. And then comes a pretty fun scene of Ygritte being like, all right, well, you clearly haven't killed a woman before, but we die the same way. So if you could just make it quick and also burn my body. And he's like, I can't do that, dude. It's just too risky. And she's like, all right, I guess I'll get eaten by a shadow cat. That's not that bad.
Right.
She's so very, like, matter of fact about everything.
There's worse things that are going to happen. At one point, she's, like, propped over with her neck exposed, and she's like, dude, come the fuck on. She says, I can't be brave forever. And I was like, oh, I love you. Yeah. She's, as far as introductions go, this is a pretty good introduction of a new character.
Yeah.
And she's like, seems like she's going to be a lot of fun.
And as we have already mentioned, he eventually is just like, I just can't do it. And sends her off, tells her to run away. And it's just embarrassing. Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to face the rest of his crew. I feel like there's going to be some joshing.
Do you think they're going to know?
What?
Her body won't be there. I guess, of course, they'll know.
Yeah, I guess it depends on whether or not, like, he can just run up and catch up with them and maybe just lie and say it happened and they'll take his word for it and not circle back. You know, I'm hoping that's how it goes. But because of the whole concern about what happens to these... Well, no, because if he says he took her head off, then that takes care of any sort of coming back to life. Right? So he could get away with just being like, yeah, I took her head clean off. So we don't have to worry about disposing of the body. It's all good. Let's just keep going forward.
Yeah. Let's
not, like, linger around.
No, don't look back there. No. It's fine. Don't look.
Exactly.
All right, so that's the end of that chapter. I believe next week we're just going to do 2 chapters, but we're going to start getting into a section where they're going to be... The chapters are going to get way shorter. We're going to jump from one POV to another pretty quickly. And we may start doing 3 chapters at a time because of how short they are. But I will look ahead on that and let you guys know next week. And just really quickly, would like to say hi to the 2 new patrons this week, Daniel Brockett and Nona. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining the family. I hope that you are enjoying yourselves. And yeah, I'm just like, we're starting for patrons the next Mistborn book. We just finished Alloy of Law, and Miles told me the name of the next book. This guy really enjoys his lengthy titles. I can't remember what it is. Here it is. There it is. The next book is Shadows of Self. And somebody commissioned me to cover a short story for Spoil Me called Shadows of Darkness in the Forests of Silence or something. I can't even... It's such a long title, and it's so odd in the way that it's, like, the language, that I continually forget it. But both Brandon Sanderson, or as I like to call him, Brando Sando. And yeah, Rashawn and I are going to be resuming Unsobers in January. We had to take a break because, like, every Saturday in December was taken up with something. But we'll be getting back to that, and I'm going to have to come up with some new topics. Last year, we did stuff that was sort of like holiday-centric, but it's going to be pretty much after the holidays. We did an episode about holidays, and Rashawn and I kind of invented our own holiday. We should perfect that and then like do an official release, an announcement about our holiday. Write a scripture for it, you know. I like this. Guys, just so you know, Rashawn's going to be the head of the cult. So we've already established that. That's good too, because you have the mystique out of the two of us. You know?
That's what I have. The mystique.
You do though, like you don't talk about yourself as much as I talk about myself. You know, it's the sort of like they say always leave them wanting more, and you do that.
Oh.
I leave them wanting less.
That's not true.
Going, I mean, you could have just not told me that part.
Someone
that would have been
commented
fine.
in the Facebook group, and she ended her comment with, "I'm sorry if that's TMI." And I literally almost replied, "It's unspoiled. There's no such thing."
Yeah. Oh. God. I know, it's always wild to me when I like, there was somebody in the, I'm a, by the way, ambassador for Patreon.
Yeah.
And there was somebody in one of the meetings who was like, can anybody advise me how to build my business when I don't want to share anything personal about myself with any of my followers ever at all? I want to be able to play these various characters that I play in different skits that I do. I don't want who I actually am to play any role in what they know about me. And it seems like with these kinds of online businesses, if you don't engage that way, you just are screwed. And I was like, suddenly really thinking about, that's like my entire brand. Everybody knows everything about me pretty much. And yeah, what would it be like to attempt to do what we do, but not really share anything of ourselves at all? It'd be really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess there are plenty of, podcasters that operate that way. Mm-hmm. None that I really listen to.
I think that I just don't go for those types, so I can't imagine that sort of scenario.
Same.
But anyway, guys, become patrons, and you'll get even more of me and Rashawn talking about weird shit like our invented holidays at patreon.com/unspoiled. And
you can learn the secret sign for, what's it called? A genuflect?
Oh my God, the genuflection. Yes, the cut invented. That's so good. Guys, go into the Discord. It's fun times. And we will have to nail down the exact date for this, because the thing that Rashawn and I kept on coming back to in the holidays episode was that the bleakest time of year is March-ish, where winter just feels like it's never going to fucking be over, especially if you live in the Northeast. So we want to pick a time in there, but Easter can fall real early and screw it up sometimes. There's a whole series of things that might make it tricky to nail down a good consistent time of year. Yeah,
my birthday is at the end of February, so I wouldn't want it to be really close to my birthday, so it would have to either be in the first half of February or the first half of March.
And I don't want the first half of February, because that's Valentine's. It'll be competing too much with Valentine's Day. But yeah, we're gonna have to figure something out. We'll do it though. We'll nail it down. I'm excited about it, because frankly, I need something to cling to, for fuck's sake. It's just a bit at sea lately, everybody. And now that all the wedding is over, that was something that I would just go to mentally, and I don't have that anymore. So I'm just sort of well, what now? And not necessarily in a bad way, just a sort of looking around going, huh.
Well, you don't necessarily have to fill that space, I'm just letting you know. There's no rule. There's no rule. Oh. But that is for another time, because it's getting late and I have to go to bed.
All right. Well, guys, thank you all again so much for listening. We love you. And we will see you next week with 3 more chapters. Or no, 2 more?
2 more
chapters. Fucking Christ.
Trying to kill me.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meera and Jon, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.